God, I haven't had McDonald's in like 17 years, I want to say. I got a couple of double cheeseburgers just in case I ended up liking it. Alright, no mayonnaise, great. It's pretty good. I grew up in a post-Super Size Me world, so I just grew up equating McDonald's as bad health. So I just saw Shin, Kamen Rider. Wow. I thought it was absolutely incredible. If you want a spoiler-free review, I think that if you like Kamen Rider, you will probably like this movie. If you don't like Kamen Rider, if you don't know Kamen Rider, this is not going to get you into it. Actually, as I was leaving the theater, I was, keeping a little pace behind a couple of guys who were talking about it, and one of them was describing how he's been completely unable to get into Kamen Rider, and this just like sealed the deal forever for him. And good for him, whatever, that's fine. But I think that that's the biggest appeal of the movie to me, is that it's utterly uncompromising in terms of what Kamen Rider is. So I would say, again, if you're into Kamen Rider, go see this movie. It's a distillation of everything that you probably like or dislike about Kamen Rider, and you're not going to know until you roll those dice, and I think that's really cool. Spoiler-free review. That's it. It's done. It's out the window. From here, we're going... anything is game. I'm not gonna spoil like major plot beats as much as possible, but we're gonna get a full enemy list. There's gonna be major plot beats that will occasionally come up. There's really nothing I can do about that. It's just how I talk about movies. Holy shit, dude. This was incredible. I'm really happy that I went to go see this in theaters. They had this big ad at the beginning where they were like, yeah, I wish I could go see this on the small screen. Said nobody ever, which I thought was really ironic because I was seated in the middle of the theater, and even just from that distance, it basically rendered the screen about the size of my 70-inch TV that I keep at the foot of my bed. So, like, I'll take my small screen Cinemark. It's about the same size as yours. So the movie opens on this, like, incredible motorcycle chase scene, right? And we get all of these really, really great, like, POV shots of Ichigo looking at the rear view mirrors and then Ririko on the back seat. I thought that was really cool. That's a major thing that's going to make or break this movie, I think, for a lot of audiences, is the cinematography is crazy. We get a lot of POV shots during fights, which, like, when do you ever get that? You know what I mean? But, I don't know. This movie really makes you feel like Kamen Rider, right? It puts you in the shoes of the action, quite literally in this case. And I think it delivers in a very fresh way for the series. Like, that's not something we see a lot of in terms of Kamen Rider action. But simultaneously, it stays very true to it. When I was watching the fights, the thing that kept coming to mind was that behind-the-scenes scuffle that Anno and the action choreographer had during the filming, where Anno was saying, like, you can't just have guys standing around in the background waiting for their moment to strike, because that never happens in this movie. When there is a fight going on, everybody is constantly involved in that fight, and it is remarkable to watch. The bit where Spider-Man captures Ruriko. It's not Ririko, it's Ruriko. I made sure to check the subtitles and make a note of it, because I can't rewatch this one. I thought that whole sequence was really great. The stuff with his conversation about Midorikawa, I believe. I know it's something like that. I'm pretty sure it's Midorikawa. It's been a while since I've watched Kamen Rider Ichigo. I liked the approach to Tachibana in this, although it was one of those things where I'm like, this is going to end up being Tachibana, and then it was, and I was like, okay, yeah, like, he doesn't really act like Tachibana all that much on a surface level. I think on a deeper level, he's representative of Tachibana's idealism. Or his ideals, rather, not his idealism. Quite the opposite, as a matter of fact. Right at the beginning of the first fight, they do one of those classic shaky cam pans up to the mountainside with the old Showa sound effects and everything, and I thought that was incredible, as was the, subsequent fight, obviously. The violence in this movie for Kamen Rider is on a next level. I think this is what people expected from, like, Amazon's, and I think mostly got from Black Sun, and it was very cool seeing it lean into the fact that, it's a movie. Because, like, these movies, the Rider movies, generally get a lot bloodier. Not a lot bloodier, but they get bloodier than the TV show because they don't have to worry about TV censorship. And it was cool to see that tradition carry over into this film. Yeah. Why have I not been eating McDonald's? This kicks ass. I don't know that this is a universal experience. I have to imagine not. But my theater's speaker system was incredible. Every time that there was an impact or like a motorcycle revving or whatever, or an explosion, you felt it in the seats, and it really, again, it completely immersed you in these fight scenes, in the action. Like, I very rarely go to the movies because, again, I just have a home theater at the end of my bed, but God, am I glad that I went to see this movie in theater. I really liked the idea that Takeshi's body is sort of moving instinctively at first. It's entirely the shocker brainwashing. He doesn't want to hurt anybody, and he's, he's non-consensually killing people. I think that that's a really horrifying idea, and it's just very Guyver almost. The idea that his suit is sort of symbiotic and it's sort of taking him over, but it's not even the suit; it's the brainwashing. It's just he doesn't understand how to delineate the two yet, right? I don't know. It's a really cool idea. I thought the heroes wear red thing was really funny because we're a 01 channel, baby. So prana, that's a real thing. That's from Buddhism. That's the idea of like understanding, right? It's like the idea that you are capable of comprehending phenomena, which I think that they sort of worked with in this. I really need this to come to Blu-ray so I can rewatch it immediately, because we'll talk about that later. I think that that's a really interesting idea. I think that it's used more thematically than literally in this movie, ironically, given how literally it's used in this movie. But I think it's the idea that Takeshi is slowly learning to understand the human experience again, and that extends to Hayato in the second half, and Ruriko's search for human understanding between both herself as a cyborg and like an ex-Shocker member and her brother as this Nazi nihilist, I thought the reveal of Spider's extra hands, where he just starts unzipping his body, like, supernaturally, and we get that incredible shot of, I'm just gonna turn off my ringtones. So we get that shot from inside of Spider's body, of the hands crawling out of him. And I was like, I don't think I've ever seen a shot like that in a film before. You know? I think that this movie takes a lot of really weird risks that I loved, and I know a lot of audience members did not love. And I think that that's because this movie doesn't have Yoko Higuchi attached. So there's no real, like, mainstream filter for all of Anno's weird stream of thought filmmaking and, like, fan service and everything. This movie does not explain a goddamn thing to you. It says, hey, you like Kamen Rider, right? And then it fucking just gatekeeps the hell out of it for you. And I think that differentiates it from Shin Ultraman and Shin Godzilla beforehand, which were pretty straightforward. Like, there's a lot of metaphor to them, but they're telling you what's going on. Like, you have characters that will turn to the camera and declare their ideals, right? But with this one, you sort of have that, but it's all very cloaked in metaphor. And it's very cloaked in cultural and systemic issues in a way that I think those other ones don't really add up to. And I see a lot of people saying Shin Ultraman's still easily the best one, and I think we're going to continue to see a lot of that opinion because this movie's really challenging. Like, I have pages of notes here because my chair had a really high back and I was able to turn the brightness down and take a bunch of notes without interrupting everybody else at the theater like an asshole. But I definitely understand where people are coming from and saying, like, hey, Shin Ultraman is just a better movie. And I think in a lot of ways I agree with that, and that's why I'm preferring Shin Kamen Rider. I feel bad for Shin Godzilla. He just gets the short end of this entire conversation. Love you, Shin Godzilla. I spent more than enough money to prove that, I think. But I really appreciate that. Like, one of my biggest concerns about Rider coming westward is that it would be compromised in some way for a Western audience, in the way that Dragon Knight and Masked Rider already very much were, or the fucking terrible 01 comic, which is a joke written by jokes, by the way. Like, imagine, oh god, imagine if fucking the 01 comic got an adaptation and that's the movie that we got for Kamen Rider in America. But luckily that didn't happen, huh? I liked when Ichigo stood up on his bike and did the Thouser pose. I thought that was really cool. Everybody in the theater clapped and said, yay, Thouser. Gaiamatsu is the greatest character in Kamen Rider history. And I was like, wow, unprovoked? That's really cool. Good job, everybody. Hey, way to have good taste. So speaking of Spider, throughout that entire fight, it felt like everything that was going on was being translated through manga panels, which I think is a really clever way of referencing the action from the manga, right? Go figure. I've seen a lot of people complaining about the quick cuts and the sort of panel focus and how it seems to sort of jump from, like, major beat of the fight to major beat of the fight. And, like, yeah, that's how comics read, you know? I really appreciated that. Again, this movie is not going to be for everybody. Like, I don't think that it's invalid to say, like, hey, I didn't like that. And I think that if you didn't like Shin Kamen Rider, that's perfectly fine. I don't give a fuck. But I think it set out to do something very specific, and it very much accomplished that for a small amount of people rather than not accomplishing anything for a broad spectrum of people, you know what I mean? And, like, that's Kamen Rider, so what can I say but great job? Again, I think that the quick cuts of the extreme gore go a really long way in communicating the violence of Hongo, as if he's sort of experiencing this in, like, a fugue state, which he literally is. So that's cool, right? I understand it's not gonna be for everybody, but personally I'm of the opinion that when it comes to gore, less is more, right? The rider kicks in this film, every one of them put a smile on my face. They're some of the most brutal and painful looking finishers that I think the series has ever seen. And I mean, that's as good an homage to the manga as anything, right? So as it starts out, Takeshi, whenever he's transformed, whenever he's henshined and he's fighting, he's losing himself to the violence of the shocker brainwashing. Like he's entering this nihilistic state where all that he can do is fight to survive, and I think that that's really cool, because like, what is that if not just activism, right? Like, it's the idea that you're going to a protest knowing that somebody might run you over with their car, and that's horrifying. And that's sort of juxtaposed against Rurika's idea that to protect somebody means that you're enduring pain in order to spare others from that same pain. There's this recurring thing with her and her brother that happiness and pain are a single stroke away from being the same kanji, and I think that that's kind of the crux of the film. I say as if that's like a revelation and not something that the film comes right out and tells us. I say the film doesn't spoon-feed itself, but like, there are times when it does. So there's this thing throughout the movie of balancing violence with compassion. Like, it runs throughout the entire thing, total through line. And I think that that's really interesting in context of, like, Naruto. Obviously, 01 channel. Stupid. I think that that's really interesting through the lens of, like, Reiwa's Naruto or Koda from Gaim. This idea that naivete is a double-edged sword, and, you know, it can be wielded very improperly. It can be, you know, used to destroy as much as it can be used to create or build. And watching the main opponent of this movie and Takeshi and Hayato, primarily Takeshi. Hayato is less of a big deal until, like, the absolute third act. But watching Takeshi and the villain have this sort of ideological debate while throwing down with this much budget, I mean, like, it's a dream, you know? It's a dream movie for me as both a Kamen Rider fan and a Takeshi Hongo fan. So, hey, surprise, shocker, is led by an AI in this one, which, yeah. An AI created by a billionaire specifically to monitor humanity and figure out how those in despair attain happiness. Just watch Wizard, my guy, am I right? Effectively, they're looking for ways that people overcome their own sadness in order to try to apply a sort of moral rhetoric to the entirety of humanity, which I think is a really interesting idea and an interesting sort of expansion on the whole final solution thing. It's Adele from Ghost trying to force his personality onto everybody else because he assumes, hey, the camera's in my head, I'm the protagonist, right? Which, there's a really, really fucked up scene where that dude explains this whole rhetoric and how he wants to make everybody else happy, and then he fucking shoots himself, and it left me with a lot to process. Ichigo trembles all the time. I understand all of the comparisons now to the shaking chihuahua meme. He's not scared, is what I'll say to that. Like, he's trembling with fury the entire film. Like, he's just getting more and more pissed off and vibrating more and more as his body is just absorbing all of the prana of all of the tragedy and everything that's been going on throughout the entire series, and the people that movie it feels like the entire show, and and he's sort of absorbing the life experience, you know. He's understanding the phenomena of Shocker brainwashing everybody and the effect that that's having on the world, and it fills him with this righteous indignation that he just can't choke down no matter what he tries, to the point where it's vibrating his entire body apart. And I think that's so fucking cool. Like, I get the same way when I see really shitty takes on my feed. I love how casually this movie has Ruriko just sort of stroll into the Batcave and have these nice conversations with Kay and Batman. I thought it was very cute. Feels very much like on the show when villains and heroes will meet up and just have a little chat. I liked Batman's whole thing of like using germ warfare to highlight areas of society that need further or better protection. I think that that's really funny commentary, especially in light of the previous pandemic that, as far as I'm aware, is still going on. Like, I'm seeing stuff from the CDC about how we need to cycle air out of rooms every 12 seconds and mask up again and shit, so seems relevant. And, like, really all of the Shocker villains have their own sort of expansion on the Shocker rhetoric. Like, Spider-Man is all about superiority complexes and, you know, the idea that the Augs are this weird sort of evolved master race. I thought that was really cool. You know, it really made everybody feel distinct in a movie where everybody could very much have bled together. Especially given how little time they really have to work with everybody. It did not... By the time I got to the hour mark, this felt like the entire movie was done. I was like, oh my god, we're at Act 3. And then I was like, no. This is just incredibly dense material. I really liked the sticky sounds when Takeshi peeled his boot out of Batman's ass. I thought that was really disgusting. It was cool. Very Keita Amamiya. I really liked the bit with the Scorpion Og. I thought she was really funny. At first I was sort of like, I don't know, this is pretty revealing writing. But by the time that the punchline rolled around, I was like, oh, okay, so this is a commentary on how Showa treated female antagonists. That's fun. It was pretty funny. Everybody laughed in the theater. I liked that. The whole idea of Shocker brainwashing initiates really comes to a head with Wasp. I liked the whole idea of her controlling the populace of her city like a hive mind. I really like that scene where everybody's marching behind them. I really like her honeycomb headquarters. I thought that was cute as fuck. It was a really sad story. Like, her whole thing with Ruriko, God, that was fucked up. Like, I really liked that they're still using the Nazi eagle iconography for Shocker. I think that that's a really important part of its identity, and it's nice to see that Anno isn't shying away from its origins as a Nazi spin-off organization. He's just sort of embracing the idea that what that means has evolved with time, which I think is really cool, and an important part of why I keep coming back to Kamen Rider. There's a bit where the movie sort of focuses on the idea that Rurika has been silently benefiting from, you know, her heritage and her lineage in Shocker. It isn't really focused on too much, especially outside of this one arc. The idea of her and Wasp being domination and submission, I thought was a little on the nose, especially given the critique of Scorpion Og earlier, like a couple of scenes ago. I was right back to like, okay, Anna, where the fuck are you with women right now, dude? Are you gonna choke this one? Like, fuck. I really loved when Wasp did the quick kabuki change behind the cloth. Obligatory me saying that tokusatsu is just kabuki and no theater. However, there are a large amount of people who consider tokusatsu an exclusively Japanese art form. This is primarily due to its inherently Japanese origins in kabuki and no theater. Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you for that.
I like the idea that Wasp is able to steal prana from her underlings. This gets expanded upon later, but I think specifically in her case it really lends to the idea that she's a queen bee. She's monopolizing the resources of her people. She's completely sold out. to Shocker's ideals, and that makes a really nice juxtaposition between her and Ruruka, who is trying to shoulder the entire burden of the war against Shocker, so that other people won't have to suffer through it, which she explains to Takeshi Hongo, and then he adopts, and then Hayato adopts. Like, hey, guess what? It's a really fucking good movie. I liked her using slaves as a wall. Like, the whole metaphor of her as a queen, I think, really worked. It's very subtle. Like, it never comes right out and says all of the shit that it's saying in this specific situation, but I just really enjoyed it. I thought that whole sequence, everything with the wasp, I thought was really great, except for the domination and submission metaphor. There's a really nice scene where Ruruka and Takeshi are camping, and he can't eat anything because he's a robot, and she reveals, hey, I'm a human gear, and I go, what the fuck? And I get up, and I leave the theater with everybody else who are outraged that once again, we're stuck with fucking human gear actors. Can you believe this shit? But it was really cute. It gives him a bit of personality outside of Kamen Rider. It clues us into a bit of his backstory and his character, which at this point we hadn't really gotten that much time to, explore, because everything is so breakneck, because they're fitting the entire fucking 3-volume manga or whatever into the runtime. There's this line that Ruruka has where she is explaining how Takeshi's driver incorporates prana, and she says that you breathe the life of others. And, like, I think that's really beautiful. Like, the idea that he has so much compassion, as they keep saying throughout the film, you're too kind. He has so much compassion and empathy that he's visibly shaking the entire movie because of the pain that other people are going through. Not even necessarily in his presence, just the idea that somebody else will ever feel as bad as he did. Like, it just gets him, okay? And then, like, it introduces this idea that if everybody could become, a Shocker or an Og or a Kamen Rider, then there wouldn't be any prana left, because everybody would be absorbing all of it. It's Hongo taking up a necessary evil in order to do good. And an evil that was importantly forced upon him, rather than something that he tried to claim for himself, like all of the other Ogs. And again, it's just it's exactly right. It's Kamen Rider. That's the entire core principle of the series, and I think that they did a great job with it in this. This movie reminds me a lot of Superman 1 and 2. I don't mean that to be offensive, but I remember the first time that I watched Superman 1 and 2 before I watched Kamen Rider, and I went, this movie sucks. Movie sucks, right? So, like, if you're missing the context of the greater series overall, it's probably not great, but I don't know, man. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, this is just a complete masterpiece for me. And I think that's going to be the case for a lot of people that it's intended for, like, this is the ultimate Kamen Rider movie, or at least the ultimate Takeshi Hongo movie. I don't know. There's just this constant animation going on in these fights. Like, I can see why Anno was upset with the action director for letting people linger in the back of the scene waiting for their opportunity to swing, because, like, that doesn't happen in this movie. There is just always something going on. I think the Wasp's fight with her bodyguard is the best part. The way that it's just constantly the two of them are setting each other up or working together, and Takeshi has to deal with both of them, like, it's just incredible. But even earlier, even the first fight scene, like, everybody's doing something at all times, and you so rarely see that in movies. Like, even the best martial arts movies, you'll catch dudes lingering around waiting for their choreography to come up, their cues and everything, and I don't know. I think that Anno's inexperience is like a mixed bag in this one, because I can't argue with these results. Yeah, he was sort of an asshole about how he approached it. I think it was sort of overblown a little bit. I've worked in productions, things get heated, and then you come back and, you know, you go to your rap parties together at the end of the day. Like, it doesn't matter. It's a paycheck. But I think his inexperience really lent itself to some incredibly creative and imaginative fight scenes that seem like such a natural extension of the fight scenes that we would get in the 71 show. And I was fucking all there for it, man. Like the super speed fight with the Wasp, I thought was really great. The way that even Ichigo starts jumping frames because he's moving in relative super speed as well. He's just not able to keep up with her. I thought that was an incredible idea. Like, I've never seen anything like that before in a past decade of Hollywood blockbusters all ripping off that fucking Quicksilver scene from Days of Future Past. I have never seen that. I haven't seen that in Kamen Rider Kabuto, which did the Quicksilver shit a decade before Quicksilver. Like, it just feels entirely unique in terms of action, and that's so rare. Like, y'all know me, I don't give a fuck about the action in these movies, and I'm like, wow, that was good action, you know? I really liked the stuff with Wasp because it culminates in Takeshi finding the compassion to recognize that their enemies are also victims of Shocker and their brainwashing, and it allows him to overcome his ego and offer her a chance at redemption. And just as quickly as he does, the government robs us of that, because that's what they do. Ultimately, they're here to eradicate people that pose a threat to the established state, you know? And it's a really tragic little storyline, and I was very affected. I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was really, really incredibly well told. Especially given how little time they had to spare with it. It was bonkers. Like, she gets shot, and she says, is this what it gets me? Like being a part of Shocker, and I just like, God, imagine selling everything about yourself out, and all you get is a fucking bullet in the chest, you know what I mean? That's so tragic. Like, it's so fucking sad, and she's dying, and she's like, I wanted you to kill me, Ruri. And it's like, bro, could you not? Could you fucking not? She's like, I want to make Ruri cry, and I'm like, well, I'm not fucking Ruri, dog. We got a smelly Takeshi Hongo joke. Congratulations, Zano, you're 3 for 3 on jokes about your main characters not smelling good. Fetish confirmed. They bring up the stealing prana thing. The butterfly guy and Wasp are able to steal prana from their citizens, which I think is obviously a really cool, you know, metaphor about fascism and whatever fucking bent they're trying to address it in this movie. There's some Nazi stuff, some happy science stuff. Like, it's sort of a hodgepodge. The metaphor's not that clear. Again, it seems like a commentary on the entire gamut of Japan's history with fascism in this one. So, but I thought the general idea of it, of them creating this sort of living dead citizenship of like puppets, unthinking voters, you know, was really neat. I like the idea that hell for human beings is a world where you're unable to tell lies. And like, that does raise that question, you know, does lying make people happy? Is that something that Shocker has to incorporate into their rhetoric in order to solve depression? Like, there's no answer to that, man. It's such a stupid goal, but like, hey, Nazi's gonna Nazi, am I right? I like the idea that Butterfly, would have to be the last person alive in order to pull off the Habitat program, because it's this sort of like self-martyrdom. Like, he's such a nihilist. He's so destroyed by his tragic backstory. Well, tragic. It is tragic. It's a tragic backstory. He lost his parents. So did Takeshi Hongo. So did Rurika. And they all turned out very differently, and I think that that's really well examined throughout the movie. He wants revenge for his mother's death. Their father also joined Shocker over their mother's death, and Ririka was effectively groomed into Shocker as a direct result of her mother's death. So there's a lot of conflict there as well that I thought was really cool. Because, like, Ririka brings up, hey, you know what? Shocker's idea of happiness is not my idea of happiness. Your idea of happiness does nothing for me, bro. And he's like, well, fuck you, man. Like, she tells him that there are worlds outside of ours that are beyond our lives, and you have to be able to empathize with people instead of just being cynical and treating everybody like a threat. You know, he's become entirely paranoid, and he's not living in reality anymore, or he's living too much in reality. You know, it's the Ark versus Zaya, am I right? His whole shtick is, like, eradicating the body is going to eliminate pain, right? Because it's a chemical response or whatever. So, that would, you know, if he just ships everybody off to the fucking Habitat Project and their bodies all die or whatever, then, yeah, everybody's happy because they're not in pain anymore. It's peak nihilism. And I think that that's a really good... a really good rhetorical counterpoint to Ichigo having to learn to hope again after having everything taken away from him. And that's all Kei's whole plot of trying to figure out how to, you know, lift people out of their despair and into happiness. And the secret ingredient is hope, as it always was in Kamen Rider. It's good. I mean, Anno clearly understands the material, and I really appreciate that. Then Hayato shows up, and he's just fantastic. He's just this nice burst of, like, modern writer zest in the serious man Sunday of Takeshi Hongo and Ririka. He just breaks up all of the tension while simultaneously elevating it in an achievement of filmmaking. He's fantastic. He's fantastically written, he's fantastically acted, and he's fantastically employed. It's just a great fucking movie, dog. Because, like, he comes at this point where, like, Hongo's like, well, fuck this, I'm gonna protect you, Ririka. I promise to do that. And then he comes in and just fucks him up. Hayato comes in and fucks Takeshi up, and he's like, okay, so, like, if you hold back and I kill you, then what happens to Ririka? What happens to the people that you're protecting, man, if you're not around to protect them anymore? And remember that Hayato's still getting, you know, his brain controlled by Shocker or whatever at this point. And, like, Takeshi doesn't really have an answer for that, which I appreciate. And then, and then they fucking break his legs again. Why you gotta do it, Anno? Why you gotta do him like that? It's this whole thing of Shocker isolating sad memories and overriding them with euphoria, as they phrase it. You know, it's delusion. It's not reality. You know, you have to have your yin in order to have your yang. Everything has to be black and white, you know? That's why we live in a gray world, not in a polar good guys and evil guys world. I swear to God, if you ever come at me and you try to comment something about, like, oh, good guy writer, evil writer, then I am never going to take you seriously as a person. I will never take your opinions seriously. Like, there is no good and evil in Kamen Rider. That's the entire fucking point of the entire fucking franchise. You have to have your yin to go with your yang. The fucking entire premise of Kamen Rider is people that have evil powers choosing to use those for good, and people who have good powers choosing to use those for evil. Like, shit's all fucked up. That's the entire point. The world is messy. And that, you know, has its own conclusion when Ririka undoes the the brainwashing of Shocker, and what is admittedly the one bit of the movie that sort of made me go, okay. You know, it is ultimately a children's show, I guess. This one was PG-12. But I think that it's redeemed by the fact that the script really fucking nails how that reaction would go, and Hayato just fucking turns in an incredible performance, just weeping over the atrocities that he's committed for a cause that he doesn't even actually believe in. And you know, it sets the stage for his entire journey being one of atonement that I think is really great, because it clashes with his whole, you know, I prefer motorcycles because you can be alone thing. It's really beautiful. It's a beautiful film. There's this bit where he just goes, I just became Shocker's enemy. Like, you'll know it when you see it. It's at the start of an action sequence, and it's just like one of those fucking Rider moments where you're like, yeah, it's the best show of all time. You know what I mean? God, the stuff with Rurica. She has this great quote. It felt really nice writing behind you. I finally understood the meaning of happiness, and I was like, the stuff with Rurica, immediately after that scene, you're gonna know what it is. God, that was brutal. Some really good writing in that scene. Hayato's whole thing of when you fight evil, everyone wins. I think that's magnificent. Just magnificent line. This movie has a lot of really good lines. I was not expecting it to be as quotable as it is. Takeshi Hongo's whole thing of, like, I want to be as compassionate as my father, but actually use the power that I have at my disposal. And it's like, that creates such an interesting conversation, just that one line. That context of his father not using his gun to shoot a guy that was holding a woman hostage, and Takeshi resenting him over that, rather than that being treated as some, like, revelatory, like, oh my god, oh, he was better, the Batman didn't shoot the Joker, wow, what an idol. He's like, no, it's nice that he was kind to him and he gave him his chance, but he should have fucking shot him when he saw that the guy wasn't going to give up. And I'm like, I mean, pragmatically, yeah, you're not wrong. Like, Nazi's gonna get boots, you know? It reminds me of that fucking John with the Falcon blog or whatever guy a while ago saw my post where I was like, every Kamen Rider show is about killing politicians. That's what a rider kick is. And, like, got all flustered because Abe stands. Am I right? And it's like, dude, what do you think the show's about? Like, what do people think fucking revolutions are, man? Like, yeah, people are gonna die if we go to war. Are you kidding? I'm not saying that as, like, something I'm happy about or excited about. I'm saying that as a point of fact. Like, if we look at civil rights movements, people are dying for their fucking causes all the time. We see fucking cops execute activists. Like, this is real life. Grow the fuck up. The tunnel bike scene, I've seen a lot of complaints about it, and I'm here to tell you, whoever is complaining about it is bad at criticism. I've seen a lot of complaints about the tunnel bike scene. I do not subscribe to those complaints. I think it's the perfect employment of rider lights and all of the modernized tactics that we've employed, and, like, the helmets with the light up eyes, the belts lighting up, the bikes lighting up, in, like, this weird cocktail of 71 rider motorcycle chases and Western cowboy chases. Like, it delivered everything I wanted. It's another one of those things where it's like, this is one of the few times where I've been like, I'm glad that I went to go see this in theaters, because the bright explosions cutting more to pitch black, it just fucked with my eyes so much. And, like, I was still able to see everything that was going on, but it was like a trip. You know, it was actually like I was on LSD or something. It was just sudden eruptions of color that fade to nothing, and it's just silhouettes, and, like, I don't even know how to describe it. It is entirely unique to me as a fight scene, and one of a bazillion reasons you should go fucking see this movie. Oh wait, you can't, because it was just a Fathom event. The Blue Butterflies as Messengers of the Gods, I'm passingly familiar with, but I would really have to research in order to do more, so I'll probably talk about that when the Blu-ray comes out. appropriately, am I right? I love the Inazuma influence on Kamen Rider Zero, whatever his name is. I thought that was really clever. I loved his little pineal gland that sort of unfurls. Very From Beyond. I liked his reverse Rasengan's, but really mostly what I liked was the final fight devolving into Ichigo and Zurongo, whatever the fuck his name is, just sort of limply grappling at each other on the ground like they were like 15th round MMA fighters or some shit. Like just completely drained of all of their prana. It's just a very raw, ugly fight. Like, it's not glamorous at all, and I think that that's so cool, because it's just two desperate men being desperate over this person that they both loved who's dead now. It's this really great conflict. It's everything is pointless versus nothing is pointless. Everything that we do matters or nothing matters, you know? And there has to be some sort of compromise in between the two, right? Sorry about that, my my battery ran out. So they're grappling, they're on the ground, it's really ugly and pathetic and weak, and they're having this conversation about everything is pointless versus nothing being pointless, you know, everything mattering, nothing mattering. It's the same thing as, like, Revenge of Belial, if you've, you know, watched that video that I did, but it doesn't matter. It's just really great, it's really interesting, and I think that both of the arguments have valid points to make, and again, it's just that reinforcement that this is Kamen Rider, this is messy, the world is messy, and you're going to have to make compromises with yourself or other people in order to achieve any sense of, like, lasting universal justice. I don't know, it's cool. Like, ultimately, there isn't a resolution, you know, on either end. It has to be a give and take, sort of. There has to be the acknowledgement that humanity is capable of evil, and also the acknowledgement that humanity is capable of good. There's this moment at the end of it where Takeshi puts his helmet onto Zero. I'm just going to call him Zero. And he says, "This is what Ruriko wanted you to be." And, like, that's the moment, you know, that's what breaks him. But, like, that's what broke me, too. That was so sad. Holy shit. Like, this is an incredibly sad movie, and I really wasn't prepared for that going in. Like, you always kind of forget that Kamen Rider Ichigo, at the very least, is just an incredibly depressing story about one man trying to retain his independence and his humanity in the wake of World War II. And I think this is the moment that really best captures that, the idea of this generational violence that the Nazis inflicted on the country, or happy science, or whatever you're going with on your read for Shocker in this movie, or really whatever media, because it's the same conversation that has been going on for 50 years and hasn't really reached any different conclusions other than, you know, the way that humans overcome despair is just through hope, okay? What I think I liked the most about the movie is that it all comes down to one family struggling, a found family no less, struggling to de-radicalize a fascist, a potential fascist ruler, because that reminds me so fucking much of Kamen Rider Ghost, which is one of my all-time favorite Kamen Rider series, and it perfectly lines up with where Ichigo's journey ends up in the Kamen Rider Ghost crossover movie. And, like, that's incredible to me, because it's such a unique, fresh take on this character and this lore, but it's so true to the character that it lines up with everything that's going to come afterwards, you know? I mean, aside from the big spoiler at the end. Huge spoiler warning right here, I say, as somebody who had this spoiled for me 2 days before I saw this fucking movie, despite going out of my way to avoid every spoiler. Right here. Skip like 5 seconds if you want to miss it, okay? Takeshi Hongo dies, and I think that that's really incredible. I think that's really great. Obviously, it means that the Ghost Ichigo movie can't happen unless there's some Kamen Rider Deus Ex Machina that brings him back to life or whatever, but who gives a shit? You know, it's a reboot. I thought it was beautiful, and I liked that they incorporated the whole Takeshi, you know, losing his body and becoming Hayato's conscience thing from the manga. I think that's what this movie does the best, is it translates more of the manga than the original TV show did. So it has that same core to it that defined all of Kamen Rider to come, but it tells an uncompromisingly different story from the original, one of the two original source materials. And it makes it stand out as, like, wholly unique from the TV show that I think that most people are going to be coming into this movie from. Like, I don't know how popular the manga is. I know it's gotten a localization, but I don't exactly see it on shelves anywhere. So I don't know how many people have actually read the manga. So a lot of people are going to be experiencing this completely new, and again, I don't know whether that's a positive or detrimental ultimately to people's enjoyment of the film, but for me, as a Kamen Rider, specifically a Kamen Rider Ichigo fan, that was my shit, dog. I loved it. There's a bit right at the end where Hongo is prepared to sacrifice himself for Zero, and he's like, no, you can't do that. Like, you know you're gonna die, right? And he's like, I came prepared to die. And I was like, oh, that's fucked up, man. Because, like, he's adopted Rurika's whole mentality in trying to carry out her wishes. But in doing that, he would leave her unfulfilled. And, like, her brother knows that. And as an extension of Takeshi extending him empathy, he extends Takeshi empathy right back and allows him to take his place with Rurika in the helmet. Like, it's so beautiful, and it's that same thing of, like, why doesn't the Joker shoot the Batman? Because he believes in humanity, right? He believes that somebody, one of these people that he spares, is going to make the right decision at some point in their lives, and that will justify all of the people whose lives he spared. Like, it's perfect. I mean, you know, best case scenario Batman, when he's not being written by some fucking asshole Republican or some shit, right? Again, it's just an incredibly sad, depressing, real story, but it ends on this single spark of hope in the world, which is Hayato, who's inherited the missions and legacy of Takeshi and Zero and Rurika, and has internalized them and become a different person by the end of the film than he was when he debuted an hour prior. How did this movie accomplish as much as it did in 2 hours? Jesus Christ! He carries this will that he's inherited from Takeshi Hongo, from Rurika, in this helmet that becomes emblematic to him. He's repainted it by the end to make it a tribute to Ichigo, which I think is really beautiful. He wants to throw away Ruriko's scarf, but he knows that he's a worse person if he does it, so he holds on to it, and he, again, incorporates her will, her legacy. It's a fantastic examination of the generational inheritance of values. And, you know, we see that all throughout Kamen Rider. We see that with Aruto in 01 inheriting Koronosuke's empire, or Jin inheriting Hirobi's war, or Guy inheriting his father's values and internalizing those and shutting his own values out, or you know, Ghost, or even negatively, we see that being explored in Revice through Genta creating neuroses in all of his children through his abuse. Like, I've said it a lot in this interview, but it's very clear from every frame of this film that Hideaki Anno understands Kamen Rider greater than any of the other franchises that he's tackled so far, and that he respects it to death. And, like, I would be lying if I said that it didn't earn me even more respect than I have already for his work. Now I feel nice and fresh is the quote that sticks the most with me, I think, from the finale. I'd been super depressed for like a week and a half going into this. Like, just nothing important. Like, it's literally just depression. Like, there's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing that really spurred it on. I just have to sort of recognize, like, hey, I'm depressed right now, and eventually I won't be again, and then everything will be back on track, and that's fine. But, like, this movie, when Hayato at the end says, I feel nice and fresh again, I was like, God, that is exactly what I needed, you know? That's exactly the expression, that's the kick in the pants that I needed to just get right back on the fucking horse and start animating again and start filming again and start editing again. I'll do an update video about that soon. It was a whole thing. Like, I threw my back out and shit. That's why I haven't been doing as much. And it ends on us all realizing that Takeshi has transcended and he's become a part of the universe. He's pure prana at the end of it, right? And he's carried and he's absorbed by everybody that he's influenced and who they go on to influence in kind as a result of his influence. You know, it's the circle of life. Nasequenya. It really is amazing how it just feels like simultaneously both a greatest hits for the character in the franchise and a completely unique take on the character in the franchise. It's loyal but daring, and I don't think it's going to be for everybody, but it was for me, and I appreciate the hell out of it. So would I recommend Shin Kamen Rider? 1000%. Even if you don't like it, it's a fantastic movie, and you're probably going to find something to dig about it at some point during the 2-hour run. I do think that it benefits tremendously from having read the original manga before you go in, but I mean, really, just give it a chance. You know, worst case scenario, you've wasted 2 hours. I guarantee that you have wasted 2 hours on a worse movie in your life, you know? Anyway, that's probably going to do it for me. I don't have the Blu-ray, so I can't exactly do, like, an exhaustive deep dive on the politics or the thematics of it right yet, but, maybe I will when it comes out. Let me know if you want to see that. Thank you, as always, to our patrons, who are just the best. Like, I'm working on a stop-motion show, and the extra money coming in every month basically means I can afford, you know, a couple of things for emergencies a month, and, that's made a world of difference, and will continue, hopefully, to make a world of difference moving forward. If you liked the video, feel free to like the video. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more like it. Comment if you have any strong opinions one way or the other about how I've expressed myself or my feelings towards this film. Feel free to share it around if you enjoyed it. Share it around if you didn't enjoy it. Torture your friends. I don't care. I'm just trying to get monetized. I'm gonna go film some cartoons. For now, I've been Tim Shields, and when it comes to tokusatsu, I'm your guy. Oh, real quick, also, to the dude who saw me browsing Transformers at Target and nudged his girlfriend and said, hey, that guy looks like Thouser. Thank you. Thank you very much. That really made what was already an incredible night for me, so cheers. Yeah, I'll see you around.